U.S. Navy isn't playing defense anymore. In what looks like a jaw-dropping show of force, a major Houthi stronghold may have just been wiped off the map. Explosions lit up the night sky over Yemen, and this was no warning shot. It was a message. After months of tension in the Red Sea, the gloves are off. The strike was fast, surgical, and devastating. So what really happened, and why now? Let's break it down. The Red Sea's surface lay as smooth as glass, the kind of calm that makes the mind wander, until you remember where you are. Aboard the USS Gravely, every inch of steel and machinery is built for vigilance. This Arleigh Burke-class destroyer measures nearly 500 feet from bow to stern, and its hull slices through waves with the grace of a shark. Underneath that sleek silhouette, 6 gas turbines roar to life, generating over 100,000 horsepower. On deck, sailors move with practiced precision around the Mark 41 vertical launch system. Rows of tubes ready to fire Tomahawk cruise missiles, standard surface-to-air rockets, and evolved Sea Sparrow missiles in a heartbeat. Above them, the SPY-1D phased array radar stands tall like a dish of shards, scanning the horizon 360 degrees, sea level to sky. Every second, it sends and receives thousands of radio pulses, searching for the faintest echo of an incoming threat. Below decks in the Combat Information Center, operators watch displays that look like star maps, blips and tracks, closing distances, speed vectors. They tag each contact, assign it a threat level, and feed data into the Aegis combat system, the brain that can juggle dozens of targets at once. When the Gravely fights, it does so with layers of defense. SM-2 missiles reach out to intercept high-flying threats. Rolling airframe missiles chase down fast. Maneuvering targets and the Phalanx close-in weapon system, 6 barrels spinning at 4,500 rounds per minute, stands ready to cut down anything that sneaks in closer than a few thousand yards. But out here, even the best defenses are tested by ingenuity. On the rugged coast of Yemen, Houthi forces have turned small, off-the-shelf drones and Chinese-made C-802 anti-ship missiles into a potent mix. The C-802, nicknamed the wave-skimming killer, hugs the sea's surface at nearly 620 miles per hour. Its 365-pound warhead, primed to punch through hulls or shake a vessel's bones. On radar, it appears as a low whisper, easy to miss if you blink. Then there are the Shahed 136 kamikaze drones, looking simple at first glance, but their design packs a punch. It's about 3.5 meters long. That's roughly the size of a small car hood, with a wingspan of 2.5 meters. Wide enough to give it steady flight, but compact enough to be moved easily. Its body blends smoothly into a cropped delta wing shape. Think of a triangle with its points snipped off. At each wingtip sits a small stabilizing rudder, like little fins that keep it balanced in the air. Up front, right in the nose, sits the warhead. It's not huge, around 30 to 50 kilograms, or 66 to 110 pounds, but powerful enough to tear into a ship's deck or pierce through light armor. Behind that, the fuselage houses fuel and the controls that steer the drone toward its target. Pull back to the rear and you'll find its tiny conventional piston engine, the Mato MD550. This 4-cylinder powerhouse, likely modeled on a German Limbach design, drives a 2-bladed pusher propeller. Instead of pulling the drone forward like a plane's front propeller, it pushes from behind, giving the Shahed 136 a distinctive hum as it cruises. Getting it up in the air takes a short rocket boost, mounted on a simple launch frame, so basic that you can strap the whole thing onto the back of a truck. A small rocket-assisted takeoff, RATO motor, kicks in at launch. Within seconds, the drone is airborne. The rocket drops away, and the piston engine takes over for the rest of the flight. Once up, it cruises at about 115 miles per hour or 185 kilometers per hour. That's not blisteringly fast, but the low-flying profile, almost skimming the water, makes it hard for radar to pick up. At roughly 200 kilograms total weight, it carries enough fuel to fly between 970 and 2,500 kilometers, depending on weather and flight path. Although built as a one-way weapon, the Shahed 136's design can support other roles. The U.S. Army's equipment guide notes a potential for aerial scouting or reconnaissance. even if no cameras were spotted and captured Russian versions. More striking is its guidance. Recent reports say some drones have locked onto moving ships, using sensors or even a real-time data link, possibly via Iridium satellite phone SIM cards found in debris, to steer them beyond line of sight. The Gravely's Aegis system kicked into emergency mode like a race car hitting the nitro button. Imagine a massive brain wired with 1,000 eyes, all scanning sea and sky at once. At its core sits the AN/SPY-1 radar, a flat, dark panel that can fire out 45,000 radar pulses every second. Those pulses bounce off anything in range: ships, airplanes, even the low-flying C-802s skimming the waves. Down in the Combat Information Center, consoles glowed with green and amber lights. Each workstation, called an MK7 display, showed real-time tracks of every incoming threat. The computers ran through geometry problems faster than blink, calculating a missile's arc, predicting where it would meet a defensive shot, adjusting for wind and waves, all while coordinating with other ships and aircraft, sharing data over encrypted links that feel more like science fiction than reality. When the operations officer announced C-802 missiles, 2 of them, heading 270 degrees, every eye snapped to the screen. Those missiles, weighing about 3,000 pounds each, were closing in at jet speed. The Gravely's Aegis didn't flinch. It locked onto the targets in less than a heartbeat, queuing up Standard Missile 2 interceptors. Back on the Truman, the order came through in a burst of static. Accelerate all engines to full power. You could almost feel the carrier's 2 nuclear reactors roar awake, turning 100,000 tons of steel and concrete into a 30-knot freight train. Yet no matter how fast the Truman could go, its best defense was the Gravely's shield. Outside, dusk was falling hard. The last rays of the sun turned the horizon a bruised purple, mixing with the plumes of smoke rising from a hidden launch site in Yemen's desert. That thin veil of smoke was proof. Someone had planned this down to the minute. They lit those C-802s and Shade 136, knowing the fading light would make them ghosts on radar. On the Gravely's deck, the SM-2 missiles stood primed in their canisters, sleek tubes bristling like giant arrows. The deck crew moved in near-silent precision, their steel-toed boots echoing against the hull. No chatter, just breath and the click of safety pins. When the Aegis gave the green light, hatches swung open and the SM-2s launched in a rapid volley, smoke trails arcing over the darkening sea. The sun was dipping low, casting long shadows across the water, but danger was closing fast. 2 C-802 missiles raced toward the carrier group, each one a steel dagger slicing through the air at nearly 620 miles per hour. On the Gravely's SPY-1D radar display, the incoming threats flickered like tiny angry warnings, just under 150 nautical miles away. Inside the Combat Information Center, a hum of activity unfolded. The Aegis combat system, the ship's digital brain, sprang to life. 4 flat radar panels, each sending out 45,000 pulses every second, scanned the sea and sky in all directions. Operators watched hundreds of blips moving in intricate patterns, their consoles glowing with tracks and vectors. The system instantly recognized the C-802S, marked them as high-priority targets, and fed data into the Aegis fire control computer. Moments later, 2 Standard Missile 2 Block 3A interceptors slid upward from their canisters. Without a word spoken, the deck crews moved with precision, born of countless drills. The SM-2s ignited in thunderous blasts, accelerating to Mach 3.5, over 2,500 miles per hour, and streaked out over the darkening sea. Their white smoke trails cut sharp lines against the bruised purple sky. Seconds ticked by as the interceptors closed the distance, first at 75 nautical miles, then 50. In a dazzling display, both SM-2s found their marks. Brilliant orange flashes lit up the twilight as high-explosive warheads detonated near the C-802s. Clouds of water vapor erupted like volcanic bursts, and fragments of the missiles rained down, scattering across the waves. The threat vanished in an instant, leaving only the echo of the explosions and ripples on the ocean's surface. Yet even as the last shockwave faded, another wave of danger loomed. Dozens of Shahed 136 kamikaze drones lumbered forward, each a plywood-bodied menace carrying around 110 pounds of explosives. Their slow pace, about 115 miles per hour, made them vulnerable to radar, but their low flight path, hugging just above the waves, turned them into hard-to-spot hazards. Despite costing only around $20,000 each, they posed a serious challenge when launched in swarms. Rather than waste expensive interceptors, the Gravely relied on its phalanx close-in weapon system, the ship's final line of defense. This rotating 20mm cannon, often likened to a mechanical guardian droid, spun up to 4,500 rounds per minute. As the drones emerged from the haze, the phalanx radar locked onto multiple targets simultaneously, feeding precise aiming data to the gun's fire control computer. On deck, the Gatling barrels roared to life. Each burst of fire sent streams of tungsten projectiles tearing through the air. Tiny explosions flickered where rounds struck the plywood drones, shredding wings and bodies into splinters. Within 10 seconds, the threat was neutralized. Fragile bits of drone debris drifted on the water, the sea once again eerily still except for floating scraps of shredded metal and wood. Silence returned, heavy with the realization of what had just happened. 2 multi-million-dollar SM-2s and a magazine's worth of phalanx ammunition had been spent to stop a handful of low-cost rockets and drones. It felt like using a sledgehammer to squash a fly. But that was exactly the point. The Houthis, backed by outside support, counted on this imbalance. Their cheap weapons forced the U.S. Navy to expend its most sophisticated defenses, draining expensive missiles and ammunition. By 6 p.m., calm had settled again over the Red Sea. Only debris remained, buoyant fragments mapping out the story of an attack that barely reached the fleet. Yet the sight raised hard questions. How could desert fighters in Yemen challenge the most powerful navy on Earth? The answer lay in their toolkit and the patrons supplying it. The C-802, originally a Chinese design, carried Iranian upgrades. The Shahed 136 was an Iranian creation, built cheaply and in large numbers. Hidden launch sites in Yemen's sands belched smoke as a sign of meticulous planning. Each assault, though repelled, scored a propaganda victory, daring to strike at the U.S. Navy, forcing costly responses and testing America's resolve. These strikes weren't meant to sink the carrier, but to shake confidence, to measure reactions, and to wear down defenses over time. Every intercepted missile, every shredded drone, chipped away at the Navy's inventory while elevating the attacker's status at home. Behind the scenes, Iran's influence loomed large, the unseen hand-equipping, training, and directing. In the gathering dusk, the Gravely's radar panels continued to sweep the horizon, searching for what might come next. The water was calm once more, but danger never slept here. In the world of modern naval warfare, it was clear that cheap war toys, clever tactics, and shadowy sponsors could loom as large as any steel fortress. Thought for a couple of seconds. Iran's involvement isn't out in the open, but their fingerprints are all over the missiles, the drones, and the tactics. They've turned the Houthis into proxies, pushing them forward so Tehran never has to risk its own troops. Every attack on the carrier group served a bigger purpose: to wear down American defenses, sow doubt in command centers, and keep the Red Sea on edge. Behind the scenes, Iran's weapons factories churn out C-802 cruise missiles and Shahed 136 drones, then ship them through complex networks of smugglers and covert supply lines into Yemen. The C-802, with its wave-skimming flight profile and hefty warhead, and the plywood and propeller Shahed drones are low-cost but high-impact tools. Launched in waves, they force the U.S. Navy to burn its most advanced interceptors and gun rounds, turning every cheap projectile into a multi-million-dollar expenditure. The initial Houthi attack wasn't about scoring a sunk ship. It was about sending a message. By firing missiles and drones at dusk, they exploited fading light to blend into the horizon, making targets harder to spot. Even when Aegis and Phalanx defenses stopped them cold, the asymmetry of cost remained clear. The U.S. Navy's billion-dollar shield versus toys, built for a few $1,000s each. But the Americans don't just watch and absorb. Within 2 days, the U.S. Navy responded decisively. Satellites belonging to the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency swept over Yemen, their infrared sensors picking up unusual heat signatures in the desert, fuel caches, launch frames, and hidden bunkers. A Predator drone then joined the hunt, its high-resolution camera mapping entrances and surveying guard positions. At the same time, an RC-135 reconnaissance aircraft monitored Houthi communications. Its electronic eavesdropping gear intercepted orders about moving missile shipments and drone assembly. Analysts fused this data, building a pinpoint map of targets. When the strike was greenlit, the USS Gravely and USS Carney locked onto coordinates and prepared their Tomahawk silos. From those two destroyers, a dozen Tomahawk cruise missiles thundered into the night sky. Their terrain-following systems guided them low and fast, hugging mountains and ridges to hide from radar. Simultaneously, fighters from the carrier took off, each jet carrying precision JDAM bombs. These dumb bombs had been transformed into smart weapons with GPS kits that could punch through hardened roofs and deep underground shelters. The strike unfolded in perfect sync. Tomahawks punched first, their warheads tearing into the core of Houthi munitions depots. Explosions ripped through the earth and concrete, sending shock waves that rattled nearby villages. Within moments, the fighters appeared on the scene, dropping bombs through smoke columns. Secondary detonations lit up the desert as rockets and drone fuel ignited in brilliant bursts. By dawn, the launch sites lay in ruins. Craters pocked the sand where bunkers once stood, and scorched earth marked the paths of supply trucks. The U.S. Navy's message was unequivocal: challenge our ships, and we'll find you no matter where you hide. The operation didn't seek to punish civilians or spark a wider war. It aimed squarely at the tools of aggression. Yet the balance of cost still weighed heavily. Dozens of Tomahawks, each carrying a ton of explosives and costing close to $1 million apiece, had obliterated a handful of launch frames and storage sheds. The fighter jets burned jet fuel by the barrel, and crews spent hours planning and coordinating. Meanwhile, the Houthis can rebuild launch sites overnight with locally sourced materials and salvage parts. That economic tug-of-war drives the wider conflict. Iran's handcrafts cheap weapons at scale, letting proxies bleed U.S. stocks and strain logistics. America's response, though powerful, comes at a price both in dollars and in the political calculus of overseas military commitments. Every intercepted drone, every destroyed bunker, reminds commanders that technology alone can't end the cycle. The aftermath over the Red Sea is calm, yet charged with anticipation. Iranian planners will analyze this exchange, refining their tactics for next time. The Houthis, emboldened by survival, may try again with upgraded gear, and the U.S. Navy will keep its destroyers close, its Aegis panels sweeping the waves, and its missile silos ready. Thought for a couple of seconds. The narrow waters of the Bab el-Mandeb Strait hold a fragile lifeline for global trade, with cargo worth trillions moving through on any given day. The United States has made it clear that it sees itself as the guardian of maritime freedom, ready to step in when that lifeline trembles. Yet the Houthis, armed and guided by Iran, aren't finished. They've learned from every failed attempt and will return with faster missiles, smarter drones, or bolder schemes designed to keep everyone guessing. Despite recent setbacks, these desert fighters haven't lost their resolve. Each intercepted missile and shredded drone only sharpens their tactics. They watch how the U.S. Navy defends its carriers, noting where defenses strain under the weight of cost and complexity. They know that even advanced systems can be worn down by sheer numbers and clever timing. The balance of power in the Middle East feels like shifting sand. One day the giants seem unshakable, the next they're forced onto the back foot by unexpected attacks. On the deck of the Harry S. Truman, an officer stares toward the Yemeni coast, the glow of distant fires still hanging in the haze. He knows the Houthis may have lost the last encounter, but he also knows they won't walk away from the fight. Each side watches the other, waiting for the next move, aware that today's calm is only the pause before another storm. Beyond the immediate danger lies a different kind of combat zone, one of secret hangars, hidden runways, and cutting-edge labs. Not far from those tense waters, in another desert half a world away, America's most advanced aerospace contractors and military test sites stretch across dusty valleys and rugged hills. Here, Skunk Works carries on its hush-hush projects, Northrop Grumman pushes the envelope of stealth, Boeing refines its latest designs, and NASA's Armstrong Flight Research Center puts new ideas to the test. A short drive north brings you to Edwards Air Force Base, where flight testing takes on a whole new meaning. Beyond its perimeter, the Naval Air Weapons Station at China Lake hosts secret munitions trials and advanced weapons research. And looming over this landscape is the legend of Area 51 at Groom Lake, the place where whispers of alien technology and top-secret prototypes blend with reality. Among the rumored creations is the TR-3A Black Manta, a supersonic reconnaissance aircraft crafted in a covert partnership between the Air Force and Northrop Grumman. Its triangular silhouette and radar-absorbing skin make it almost invisible to enemy sensors. A ghost in the sky designed for stealth missions that require absolute secrecy. Unlike ordinary jets with long wings and obvious profiles, this ship hugs the air with a shape that defies easy tracking. Even more mysterious is talk of the TR-3B, said to harness an anti-gravity drive born from the study of an alien crash. According to legend, it spins Mercury under immense nuclear power to create a plasma field that warps gravity itself. While such tales tread the line between fact and fantasy, they trace back to the post-World War II era, when more than 1,000 German scientists came to America under Project Paperclip to work on advanced technologies. Rumors of hidden breakthroughs in exotic science still swirl around the black sites and test ranges of the Southwest. All this high-tech wizardry exists in a realm far removed from the standoff in the Red Sea, yet it speaks to the same drive, the pursuit of an edge over any rival. Whether it's intercepting a cheap drone at sea or sliding a spy plane undetected across enemy skies, the goal is constant: maintain the advantage, keep foes off balance, and deter future attacks. Back on the Truman's deck, the officer lowers his binoculars. The waves are calm again, but everyone knows that beneath the surface, the next challenge is already taking shape. The Houthis will try again, perhaps with upgraded rockets or a new kind of drone. Iran's backroom planners will keep supplying them, happy to watch from afar as proxies test America's will. And beyond that, other battles await in secret hangars and remote deserts, where projects like the Black Manta and whispers of anti-gravity craft promise to redefine what's possible. In both arenas, at sea and in the sky, the story is the same: ingenuity and tenacity on one side, unmatched firepower and cutting-edge tech on the other. The question of who will have the last laugh remains wide open, but one thing is certain: the next move is just around the horizon. Reports place the development budget for the TR-3A well above $6.5 billion, with a big slice of that cash poured into fancy optical sensors and military-grade telecom gear. Imagine a drone that could suddenly black out an enemy's radios and data links just by hovering nearby. They say this platform is more than just a spy drone. It's a floating lab for anti-gravity experiments, using what they call an electromagnetic dielectric amplifier. This setup is supposed to slash infrared heat and radar echoes so dramatically that the TR-3A could zip along at near supersonic speeds and then float like a balloon at almost 880,000 feet. If even half of that turns out to be true, it would rewrite everything we know about flight. What's even more surprising is that this machine may not need a pilot's commands every second. Instead of a stick and throttle in human hands, it could run on its own, guided by something called the Adaptive Tactical Space Operating System. Picture a craft that weighs the options, dodges unexpected threats, and tweaks its own course, all without waiting for orders from the ground. That raises the question: is the TR-3A really a stealthy unmanned aerial vehicle? Or is it a cover for a step-changing tech program that could shake up military aviation entirely? Clues suggest this isn't pure science fiction. The rumored anti-gravity drive would demand a whopping power source, far beyond what jet fuel or batteries can provide. That's where compact nuclear reactors come into play. Lockheed Martin quietly filed patents for small reactors small enough to nestle inside an F-16. If they can tame that tech for fighter jets, who's to say they haven't adapted it for these secret programs? Then there's the work of people like Dr. Salvatore Pais, whose patents from 2020 read like pages ripped from a sci-fi novel. Gravity wave generators, gadgets that bend space and time, weapons that seem to tug at the fabric of reality. These ideas may sound wild, but when the Navy grabs those patents and files them, you know someone is paying attention. And let's not forget the B-2 Spirit stealth bomber. Built over a decade starting in the late 80s, it taught the world how to slip past radars and fly over enemy defenses under the cover of night. Tracing stealth's roots takes us even further back. Long before the B-2 flew, aircraft designers in the mid-1970s cracked the code on how to hide metal giants from microwave beams. They shaped airframes into sharp angles and wrapped them in radar-soaking skins, making planes that seemed to vanish on enemy screens. Flying low over hostile territory at night, those early stealth jets could slip right through the cracks of air defenses. But the very first seeds were planted in 1947, when radar tech was still finding its feet. DARPA threw down a challenge: build an aircraft so slippery to radar that it could never be tracked. Northrop and McDonnell Douglas drew up bold ideas, but Lockheed, bolstered by its work on the A-12 and SR-71, jumped in late and stole the show. They mixed angular fins, new composites, and special paint into a prototype that proved radar invisibility was more than a dream. The real magic kicked in when engineers started feeding those shapes into computers, letting algorithms carve out surfaces that sent radar waves scattering in all directions. That breakthrough launched the Have Blue project in the mid-70s, with DARPA paying for early tests of these ghost planes. From there, stealth became more than a buzzword. It turned into a strategic game changer. All of this brings us to today, where whispers of Black Ops craft and anti-gravity drives mingle with undeniable breakthroughs in optics, autonomy, and stealth. Is the TR-3A the next leap forward, or just another layer of speculation stacked onto a legend? The only thing we know for sure is that military aviation is racing toward horizons once reserved for science fiction writers. If you've ever pictured what the next generation of aircraft might look like, silent, invisible, and almost magical, you're not alone. The future of flight is taking shape right now, and it's more incredible than most of us ever dared to imagine.